Willow Hart sneered at me when I announced my resignation. I stayed calm, keeping my gaze steady and quiet. The conversation had been about the company's choice to cut labor costs, and Willow Hart seemed to enjoy blaming those who took advantage of overtime pay. Camen Brooks, too, seemed excited about cutting expenses. A week later, my phone rang nonstop with calls from the company. When I finally answered, the president sharply asked, "Who exactly are you?" I couldn't help but laugh at the question. I introduced myself as Harper Quinn, a 57-year-old employee with 35 years of loyal service since graduating from college. I explained how our company provided administrative services, especially for busy presidents of other companies, helping them with clerical tasks and handling tax-related matters. I was proud to say I managed 40 clients. However, despite having a part-time helper, the workload had become overwhelming. But I couldn't show weakness. My clients had relied on me for years, and their struggles pushed me to keep going. Today, as I sat at my computer, Camen Brooks and Willow Hart's constant harassment was on my mind. Camen Brooks, who was 7 years younger than me and now head of the tax department, had completely changed after his promotion 3 months ago. His once polite attitude had turned rude, and he often complained, making every interaction difficult. Even when I tried to stand up for myself, he didn't care and would just tell me to follow the manual, warning me not to take unnecessary steps. Willow Hart, who worked as Camen Brooks' assistant, also joined in the bullying. She criticized my work efficiency and made fun of my position, even though I had turned down the chance to become the department head, a fact neither Camen Brooks nor Willow Hart knew. I continued doing my job, but the harassment didn't stop. Camen Brooks accused me of working too much overtime, saying it was wasteful, and Willow Hart would sigh and agree, claiming that my overtime was hurting the whole department's performance. The reason for my overtime was that Camen Brooks had dumped a month's worth of client files on my desk, telling me they had to be done by the end of the month. After work, I looked at the pile of files, feeling exhausted. Wait, all these have deadlines this month? I asked myself in confusion. But before I could fully process the situation, Camen Brooks was already packing up his desk, uninterested in my concerns. "I'm heading out. Good luck with that," he said casually as he left the office, leaving me with an overwhelming amount of work. Willow Hart soon followed, adding to my frustration with a mocking laugh. As I sat there, I realized that some of the files had been Willow Hart's responsibility. That's when it hit me. Camen Brooks and Willow Hart were trying to push me into retiring. My extensive experience and deep knowledge of taxation made me a valuable resource for the rest of the department, even more than Camen Brooks. His unfriendly attitude and unattractive personality made people avoid him, except for Willow Hart, who seemed to stay close to him for strategic reasons. It was clear that Willow Hart was trying to impress Camen Brooks, and her harassment wasn't just personal. She wanted to win his favor, as he was the one evaluating the department's performance. Despite the challenges, I had to keep working, balancing my regular tasks with preparing tax declarations for my clients. The workload seemed endless, but I knew if I claimed overtime, Camen Brooks and Willow Hart would complain even more. So, I resigned myself to working extra hours without pay. Then, unexpectedly, I was called to the president's office. Our company had recently gotten a new president after the former president became ill. The new president, his son, didn't know much about the company yet. When I walked into the office, I saw Camen Brooks and Willow Hart smirking at me. The atmosphere was tense as the president dropped a bombshell. "Harper, we need you to resign by the end of the month." My head spun. I asked for more information, and it turned out that Camen Brooks and Willow Hart had accused me of overbilling for overtime. While others had around 15 hours of overtime, they claimed I had worked over 60 hours. The president, unaware of the real situation, seemed impressed by Camen Brooks and Willow Hart's zero overtime record. It was then that the truth hit me. The extra overtime was because I had been doing both Camen Brooks and Willow Hart's work. But if I told the president that, it might look like I couldn't manage my time properly. I calmly explained the situation, stating that I hadn't overbilled for overtime, but had simply struggled to finish the massive workload within regular hours. The president sighed deeply, unsure of what to do. He doubted my story, but admitted there wasn't enough evidence to take action against me. Even so, the weight of their accusations hung heavily in the air. He insisted that they couldn't keep someone who worked at such a slow pace. Resigned to the situation, it was clear the president had made up his mind. He suggested I resign, and there wasn't much left for me to argue. After dedicating 35 years of my life to the company, I was being asked to leave. A deep weariness washed over me. Despite all my hard work, especially the extra tasks dumped on me by Camen and Willow Hart, none of it seemed to matter. I agreed to leave at the end of the month, reminding the president that I had already informed him of my intention to resign. As I glanced at Camen and Willow Hart, their smug smiles told me they were more than satisfied with the outcome. Willow Hart, with her usual sarcasm, taunted me as I left the president's office, saying, "Thanks for quitting." Her words cut through me, but I kept silent, responding with just a steady gaze. Camen also made his approval clear, gleefully talking about how happy he was to cut labor costs. He even went as far as to label me someone who exploited overtime pay. As they chatted excitedly, I began thinking about the handover process. I needed to organize documents for all my clients and make sure everything was in order before I left. I personally said goodbye to as many clients as I could, ensuring appointments were set up where possible. For those I couldn't meet, I sent letters to let them know who their new point of contact would be. A week after my resignation, I was enjoying some quiet time at home when my phone rang. Seeing the company's number on the screen, I hesitated. I had already completed all my paperwork, including social insurance procedures, so I didn't see a reason to answer. However, after receiving several calls from both the company and Camen and Willow Hart's personal phones, I reluctantly picked up. The president's urgent voice came through the line. "Who exactly are you?" he asked again. I couldn't help but chuckle and replied, "Just an unemployed woman who resigned. That's all." His tone became even more anxious as he explained the chaos that had erupted since I left. 49 clients have called to stop doing business with us, he revealed, his panic evident. He practically begged for me to come back, saying everything had fallen apart. Sighing, I stood up and made my way back to the company. When I arrived, I saw Camen and Willow Hart waiting for me. They looked exhausted, with dark circles under their eyes and a noticeable change in their appearance. It surprised me, and I asked what was going on. Camen glared at me and said angrily, "Since you left, we've been flooded with calls. Clients are canceling transactions, not just yours, but also from companies we were planning to work with. What did you do?" Willow Hart, looking equally frustrated, echoed his accusation. Her weary appearance showed how much the situation had taken a toll on her. Both of them suspected I had done something underhanded to cause all the cancellations. I hadn't done anything wrong, but I had a feeling I knew why the clients were leaving. Thinking out loud, I mumbled my thoughts. Camen however, wasn't satisfied with my explanation. He outright accused me of orchestrating the chaos and demanded I go with him to the president's office immediately. Without waiting for my agreement, he practically dragged me there. As we entered the office, Camen declared, "President, I've brought her," with a sense of authority, while Willow Hart followed closely behind. Ignoring their harsh tone, the president turned to me and asked about the sudden stop in transactions after my departure. I took a deep breath and explained, "Our clients don't need us to manage their taxes. There are plenty of accounting firms that offer cheaper services. The only reason they stayed with us was because of me." Camen annoyed, shot back, "Who do you think you are?" Willow Hart sneered as well, questioning my worth to the company. But I stayed calm and continued, explaining that I had always offered personalized tax-saving strategies, which made my clients stick with us. It wasn't just about doing the job, it was about offering them something valuable. Camen dismissed my approach as inefficient, arguing that their manual-based methods were better. The president sighed deeply, recognizing that Camen and I had very different ways of doing things. He looked serious as he said, "Actually," his tone signaled that something important was about to be revealed. "I received a surprising call from my father, the former president," he began. "It turns out that some of the clients who canceled came directly to him to negotiate, asking if we could bring you back." I was shocked. I hadn't expected clients to go that far for me. The president's father emphasized that the tax department had been thriving because of my contributions. Not only had I managed my own clients effectively, but I had also helped other colleagues with theirs. I knew more than even Camen did. The president added that if I hadn't turned down the promotion to department head, I would have been in a much higher position by now. The president's face showed regret. Willow Hart looked stunned, as if she was struggling with the idea that I could have been her superior. The president apologized for making me resign in the first place. Clearly realizing the mistake they had made, the president asked if I would consider taking back my resignation, explaining that, according to his father, I was indispensable to the company. While I appreciated this sudden change in perspective, I hesitated to accept. Before I could respond, Camen interrupted, visibly upset. He protested the president's decision, questioning why I was chosen over him. Willow Hart quickly backed him up, praising Camen leadership and expressing disbelief that I was being favored. But the president wasn't having it. He sternly addressed them, revealing that since I had resigned, numerous complaints had surfaced from the tax department. It seemed Camen had been shifting his workload onto others, even handing off some of Willow Hart's work to subordinates. Camen face turned pale as the president exposed the truth. Camen had been dumping his client work onto others while accusing me of being a salary thief. The irony of the situation became clear as the president explained how Camen had been manipulating the system all along. To make matters worse, the president brought up rumors about Camen and Willow Hart's romantic involvement. Camen tried to brush it off, claiming he was just mentoring Willow Hart as her superior. But the president wasn't convinced. He had receipts from the accounting department showing expensive dinners that Camen had charged to the company. Confronted with the evidence, Camen was at a loss for words, sweating profusely. Willow Hart turned ghostly pale, realizing the seriousness of the situation. The president accused them both of neglecting their duties, inflating expense claims, and violating company policy by having an affair, especially while Camen was married. In a calm but firm manner, the president announced their immediate termination. Camen and Willow Hart tried to resist. Camen desperate, pleaded, "I have a family." Willow Hart echoed his sentiment, her voice shaking with fear at the thought of being fired. She promised to apologize to me and others for piling work on us, but it was too late. Her concern about her reputation only heightened her desperation. She begged for a second chance, but the damage was done. Sensing their desperation, I couldn't help but offer some advice. "Why don't you stop resisting? It's undignified," I said calmly. Camen glared at me and snapped, "Shut up. What would a single person like you know?" I sighed and replied, "Camen you are the one who got me fired. It's just karma. What goes around comes around. Maybe it's time to take some responsibility." Camen looked away, clearly frustrated, while Willow Hart bit her lip in distress. I knew more about their misconduct and turned to the president with a smile, asking if I should share the rest. Both Camen and Willow Hart immediately panicked, trying to stop me from revealing more. But I issued them a warning. Wrongdoings eventually come to light, and they should face reality before things got even worse. At that, Camen and Willow Hart collapsed to their knees, pleading for mercy. The president, however, had made up his mind and fired them on the spot. Later, I revealed the full extent of Camen and Willow Hart's misdeeds, including how Camen had faked business trips to spend days with Willow Hart and how they had bullied other employees into quitting. They would give them sudden tasks with impossible deadlines, making their lives miserable until they left. Some of those employees had asked me to stay quiet at the time, but since they had moved on to better jobs, I decided it was time to speak up. The president was furious at the revelations, especially about the inflated expense claims. He expressed his anger over how they had manipulated the system and planned to cut Camen and Willow Hart's final pay. Camen with tears in his eyes, begged the president not to dock his salary, fearing the impact on his family. But the truth about Camen affair with Willow Hart had already spread. It led to Camen divorce, and both of them now faced compensation claims as part of the lawsuit. I became aware of the full situation when Camen reached out to me, asking for help persuading the president to reconsider their firings. Desperate, Camden Brooks and Willow Hart had found themselves in a dire situation. Because of the tight-knit nature of the tax industry, word of their misconduct had spread fast, making it nearly impossible for them to find new jobs. They struggled to make ends meet, and eventually, both were forced to take on day labor at construction sites, a far cry from their previous office roles. Willow Hart would often call me, crying and pleading for help. "Harper, please help. I just wanted a better life." "I never really liked Camen Brooks," she sobbed over the phone. But despite her tears, I couldn't ignore the fact that their situation was a consequence of their own actions. Many people, myself included, had suffered because of their behavior. I firmly reminded Willow Hart, "You can't unring a bell. What's done is done. The consequences you're facing now are because of the choices you made." Willow Hart's protests were filled with regret, but there was nothing she could do to change the outcome. She had to face the reality of her actions, just as Camen Brooks did. As for me, I felt a sense of closure. Though their downfall didn't bring me joy, it brought a sense of justice for the unfair treatment I and others had endured. While they struggled with the mess they had created, I was ready to move forward, knowing that sometimes what goes around truly does come around, and I decided to distance myself from the chaos of the corporate world. Even though the president begged me to come back, I had no desire to return. Once I had been told to resign, the door was closed for me. Instead, I found peace helping out at a friend's small tax office. It was a way to earn some extra money while enjoying a much more relaxed lifestyle. I no longer had to deal with the stress and drama that came with working in a big company. Looking ahead, I began to dream about starting my own tax office. I imagined a place where I could serve my clients in a personal and meaningful way, without all the red tape and corporate rules. I wanted to create an environment where I could focus fully on my clients' needs and be on equal terms with them. As a tax accountant, my goal was to provide a service where my clients felt valued, not treated like just another number in a system. This marked the start of a new chapter in my life. It was a chapter filled with excitement and new opportunities. I was free to pursue what truly mattered to me, creating something of my own and building stronger relationships with the people I worked with. My second life was just beginning, and I couldn't wait to see where this journey would take me. No longer tied down by corporate demands, I felt lighter and more in control of my future. Every day brought a new sense of purpose, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. My focus was clear: to build a business where I could thrive and where my clients could trust that their needs were my top priority. As I moved forward, I knew this new path was the one I had been waiting for, a chance to grow both personally and professionally in ways I hadn't thought possible before. With a heart full of optimism and determination, I eagerly anticipated what lay ahead.